Hi, and welcome to VIBEZ Daily. This is a daily devotional curated by VIBEZ Church to help you practice the way of Jesus and be all that God has called you to be. You have joined us for our year-long series titled Devoted. Acts 2:42 tells us that the followers of Jesus were devoted to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to breaking of bread, and to prayer. This podcast was created to provide context and commentary for what you read each day. Just before our friends begin discussing today's reading, we want to invite you not only for fellowship, but for prayer as well. We have created the Vibe Daily Chat group to offer you fellowship and a community where you can state your observations, ask questions about the reading or the podcast. You can join us by downloading the VIBEZ Church app in your favorite app store. Click Join the Conversation and join us today. And finally, we hope that you can join us for prayer. Prayer happens Monday through Friday, and more information on that can be found on the VIBEZ Church app under prayer. Now, let's begin our conversation on today's reading.
All right. Welcome back to the VIBEZ Daily Podcast. It is day 107. We are so excited to have you back with us today as we are really journeying through the entire Bible this year in our series that we have titled Devoted, starting in Genesis and making our way through the book of Revelation this year. And so excited to be back again, joined by my wife, Victoria, who's with me this week as we continue the book of 2 Kings. And yeah, we'll jump right into today's conversation, picking up at chapter 9, left off really kind of listing a couple kings of Judah, specifically, and kind of talking about, this king of they're intermarrying essentially with some of the descendants of Israel, Israel's kings, and how that's kind of leading them astray a little bit here. But yeah, in chapter 9, Jehu is kind of anointed to be the next king. Elisha gets an opportunity to do that, tells him kind of what to do in some ways, and kind of gives him some they kind of sneak in to anoint him, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, would you find interesting as Jehu is anointed and appointed the next king of Israel?
This whole story is really interesting to me, but I just love just overall the fact that like what the Lord said would happen happens. Right? Like he tells this to Elijah to give him comfort and reassurance, like don't worry, like anoint Elisha's going to anoint Jehu as the next king or whatever. And so to see that here happen and see how the Lord does that, and then see how the Lord uses Jehu to take out Ahab and his family, it's really interesting. Or Ahab's family, because he's gone by now. But so I do love it. But I love when he's like, after the servant comes and tells Jehu what's up, and Jehu goes back with his boys, and they're like, "What was he talking about?" He was like, "Nothing at all." And it was just like, "Yeah, that's not true. What happened?"
Right.
Oh, he was talking this guy, I'm supposed to be king and stuff,
Yeah, the language. Like again, I don't know how they're translating the Hebrew in this particular case.
I don't know either.
I don't know what your version says. My version says at first, like, it said, "Is everything all right? Why did this crazy person come to you?" This is verse 11 here. Then he said to them, "You know the sort," and they're ranting. And they replied, "That's a lie, tell us." And then he said, "He talked to me about this and that."
Right.
And said, "This is the Lord says." Like,
it's the this and that for me.
Yeah. But I was just like, the sort, which means like you know them kind of folk. Like you know them people. Some of the crazy folk, man. They be ranting. They just running their mouth, yapping. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing.
Yeah. Oh,
no,
I'm just supposed to be king and stuff. And they was just like, "Wait, so what's up? Like, you supposed to be king?" Like,
and then of course now they blowing horns and laying garments at his feet, like, "Oh, you the king, Like, I thought, I did. This was funny. That conversation, that back and forth was hilarious.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious.
But yeah, so like what Elisha says is going to happen is what happens, right? And so he has to go after first the king of Israel, right? but then he also goes after Jezebel at some point as well. Yeah, what do you think was interesting as like this plays out, and he has to kill Joram and Ahaziah, and then Jezebel dies. There's kind of all these different stages to wiping out the family of Ahab and anybody associated with him. Anything that you thought was interesting specifically?
I think we mentioned this a while back, and I don't remember what king this was, but we was like, man, you can't trust nobody. Like, folks be quick to turn on the king, like, or the king's people. Like, you are not safe at all. So the fact that like these people, you know, came up to him while he was, you know, riding, and he's just like, what you have to do with peace? Fall in line. You know, like they just fell in line. Like,
Yep.
what? That didn't take much convincing. Like, what is this? So, you know, I think it was really interesting, like how quickly people turned, and I know they was ready to throw Jezebel out. So,
yeah,
you know, she had that one coming.
Yeah. They was just like, yeah. Let me just looked up in the windows. They looked down and saw who it was. It was like, all right, we got you.
We got you.
We got you. Here she is.
Let me just give me a second. Just give me a second.
Yeah, we'll be right back. We just go throw her out the window.
I'm just like, what does this look like?
Yeah, this is so cold.
Oh, and like that, nobody stopped them. So everybody was probably looking like, what?
It's about time.
Well,
that's probably. I'm glad somebody did it.
Exactly.
Okay, Jezebel been tripping for years.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's interesting. You know, they call out, and this is something that the author does in Kings constantly, right? That like they continue to get callbacks to things that the Lord said, whether it's through prophets, right? So like at the end of 9, you know, this fulfills the Lord's word that he spoke through his servant Elijah the Tishbite. The plot of land at Jezreel, the dogs will eat Jezebel's flesh. Jezebel's corpse will be like manure on the surface of the ground in the plot of land at Jezreel, so no one will be able to say this is Jezebel.
Yeah.
Right? Like constantly throughout this, there's all these just callbacks to like, yep, this fulfilled exactly what the Lord said would happen. And I don't know, I love that. Like to me, it challenges me personally because I'm really bad at like journaling. Like that's just not something I do, right?
Yeah.
Because in general, just keeping track.
It's hard. Stuff, right? It's hard. You start off good and then just you fall off. Yeah,
but like it's interesting. There have been seasons where I've done it like decently, and I'll go back and read them, and I go, "Oh, God did that." You know what I'm saying? And like I should have that kind of same account for like God said this, he did that.
Yeah.
You know, and write that down for not just for me, but for the people thereafter. Because I mean, they didn't write this down for them to remember. They did it so that the descendants, the people who come to find these scrolls and read these scrolls, remember God did what he said he would do.
Yeah. You know? Years later, something.
Yeah. I mean, in this case, it's years later, but even if you think about like Joshua, right, that was one of the things that like, by the end of the book of Joshua, it was like Caleb got his land, the daughters of what's his name got their land. Zelophehad like got their land, right? Like Joshua got this land. They ain't like literally it was just like in all the things that God said he did, right? And that was just constantly throughout scripture. So I don't know, I just love seeing that. That like it's important to like pause and just kind of take note that it's a big deal.
Yeah.
They said it was gonna happen and it happened.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly as he said it would.
Yeah. Exactly. That part.
Anything else to not before we move to 10? I didn't know if there was anything else to that. Yeah, because I mean Jehu continues to get to work.
He is going to town.
Yeah. So I mean there's like these 70 sons of Ahab that like live in Samaria, and they all kind of have caretakers of sorts, like these men that are watching over him. And like he pretty much sends them a letter and's like, bring me their head. And as you said, you can't trust nobody. It turned all of them, all 70. He went 70 for 70.
You went from washing my feet to chopping my head off.
Yeah.
Like what? You went from serving me filet mignon.
Not filet mignon.
To serving me up.
on the same platter.
On the platter.
On the same platter. Well, in a basket, I think. Was it a basket?
I can't even get a platter.
Yeah.
I'm not even on China. I want somebody's dusty old basket. This is messed up, man. Like, can you... This is messed up to me.
Just because I got a letter. Just because you got a letter.
Nobody even came in person and threatened you. But I mean, it's like, who is this man Jehu, and what reputation has he made for himself?
Mm-hmm.
And that when people see him and he show up, like they're like, oh yeah, he mean business, or like, oh no, we're not trying to buck with Jehu.
Yeah,
we're not trying to go up against him. Like, I don't know what the Lord had done, outside of this text that we read here about Jehu, and like how he has made this name for himself.
Yeah,
but he's somebody and something that you just go and fall in line when he show up. And maybe that was also, maybe like said, these chariots, these invisible chariots and these armies creating fear in the people or something amongst them.
Yeah.
That to make sure that this plays out the way that the Lord has.
Right.
But yeah, it seemed like everybody was scared of him. They wasn't backing down.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it is, he even calls that out, like, this what was done to fulfill what was promised, through Elijah. So yeah, I mean, he did have the Lord on his side through all of this. But yeah, it's super cold that, like you said, they just all turn on him. But it feels as if he kind of gets a little out of control. Like he just kind of takes it a step too far, right? Because then it's like, the kids of the relatives of like Judah's king, he like runs into them and he's like, oh yeah, take them alive, and he just kind of slaughters them. And it's like, what did Ahaziah do with any of this? Right? Like that kind of wasn't the same situation. And so I don't know, it feels like all of a sudden now he is just going after anybody and killing whomever it was. So yeah.
But Ahaziah was wicked too, though, right? Like he was an evil king. So I wonder if that was also just wrath of the Lord too, though.
Yeah.
To be done with him because he had that influence. Because listen, these kids have the seed of Ahab in them.
Yeah.
So they had to go to.
They got to go to. Yeah.
That was like
that makes sense.
One drop of Ahab.
Yeah. Just thorough.
Yeah, he wasn't playing around.
Yeah. Which even like the influence of Ahab, right, were these Baal worshippers, right? So he kind of comes up with this scheme, makes it seem like he wants to worship Baal himself.
That was cold.
Gets everybody, all the Baal worshippers. We throwing a party for Baal, y'all. Anybody that loves Baal, come here.
Come to the pot. You potluck.
Yeah, we coming here to the cookout. All right, y'all here? Everybody here? There's nobody that worships.
No Jesus.
Nobody worships Yahweh, right?
I keep saying Jesus, but
that's okay. Yeah.
He's there too.
Nobody worships Yahweh, right? Just want to make sure.
Right.
You got no worshipers of Yahweh? None?
Going once.
Just Baal.
Going twice.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good time. I'll be right back. It's like, yeah, don't let them come out. Don't let them out. They all gotta die. So I just thought that was really interesting that he does that, and ultimately, man, it gets him some favor with the Lord, right? Like he does some things and God kind of like honors him for getting rid of the house of Ahab, as well as kind of eliminating Baal worship from Israel.
Yeah.
But he just still he didn't completely follow the Lord's instructions.
He only got 4 generations.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I just love it. It's like a compromise. The Lord's like, I don't know. I love how he works with people. Like Ahab repents and he's like, all right, this won't happen in your lifetime.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like David's a man of his God's own heart. I'll never take someone off the throne. Solomon's tripping. All right, I got to keep my promise to David, but I'm still going to rip the kingdom away from you. Like I got to come. There's a middle ground here, right? Like you said, Jehu, you were pretty decent. I'm going to give you 4 generations. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to kill him off. I'll give you 4 generations. But I got cut off after that. I can't keep you on the throne because you wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It just this speaks to his justice to me. Like he is fair.
Yeah, because he's like, you wasn't Ahab, but you was like Jeroboam. No.
Right.
Like you was Jeroboam.
It's just, I don't know. It's so interesting to me to just see
Mhm.
this. It's justice. Like there's mercy, there's justice. It all plays out. And like I just feel like we learn so much about God and like what he values and what he and how he just I don't know, because even the fact that we're these many kings in and all these kings
Yeah.
have been wicked,
Yeah.
we'll get to it later, but like he hasn't truly punished the people of Israel just yet. Not in the way he probably could have.
Yeah. I mean, verse 32 is like, in those days the Lord began to cut off parts of Israel.
Yeah.
Like you could have been started hacking
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. And that's what Hazael's for, right? So we go back
Mhm.
to kind of what Elisha saw with Hazael, where he was like, I mean, I can see you just killing people and cutting people open and all this other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Hazael's kind of one of the leaders in really kind of making that happen. So
Mhm.
we get to chapter 11, and there's a quick story of kind of like this woman that reigns for like 7 years or something like that. 7-8 years. I think it was 7 years. Athaliah. Anything that you thought was interesting about Ahaziah's mother as she tries to kind of slide in and rule for a little bit?
Listen, you real cold for taking out all your grandkids. Like, how heartless of a grandmother must you be? And to be like, oh yeah, this my time to reign. I'm taking out all the babies. What in the world?
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know, I do love how Joash's aunt steps in and hides him. I'm like, you go, girl. Like, that's a big bold move, and hides him in the temple, and like that. Even that was intentional, right? Like, even that was like the Lord beginning to groom him in a way, like Samuel, right? Like,
yeah, I didn't think that was, like you said, because we'll see kind of how Joash is slightly different than the kings that came before him, as far as some reform and some things, just really like living for the Lord in a different way. But I think what's important to me is this is so important. This part of the story is really important.
Yeah.
Because Athaliah, or Lila, however you Athaliah, I'm just gonna say. Athalia.
Athalia.
I like that. That sounds better. What she doesn't realize is she's really trying to like cut off the line of David. You know what I'm saying? Like, Joash becomes the last remnant, the last chance for God to keep his promise to David that there would be someone on the throne. Right? So like, if she does kill off all of these descendants, there goes God's promise.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, yes, there's only a few verses here to her and they kind of talk about it, but like her 7 years and like what she did, like, is so important, because it's like this also just shows God sparing the seed of David. You know what I'm saying? And keeping that promise. Because like, I don't know. Like, that's a big deal. It's a big deal that Joash survives as she tries to kill everybody. But yeah, to your point, it was interesting. He's in the temple. He spends 6 years there with the priest. And it changes a lot, because not only does the priest end up kind of leading the overthrow of Athaliah, but he leads Joash into helping to make some wise decisions and some reforms kind of throughout Judah. So anything else you thought was interesting kind of as you look at some of the changes he made?
Yeah, I mean, I love that he stayed underneath the leadership of the priest. And I think that was also something that was really, I don't know, like, intentional of God, right? And so I think that in that his heart, like you said, was to repair the Lord's temple, because at this point it had been abandoned, been neglected, like it's been stripped of all its treasures and all of that. And like, once again, his heart was like, Now I'm old enough to kind of understand what happened, because he was an infant when this all went down. Right now,
Right.
but we're older than, what the history,
Yeah.
what happened, and what should be, and the priest is probably telling me what they haven't been able to do. Like, let me start to do this for the Lord.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And it's interesting because, we'll get to here in 12, just kind of looking at, as you said, Joash and repairing the temple and stuff. We have a 7-year-old. Like, in some ways, I go, okay, that is really young to be a ruler of a land. But I also feel like our 7-year-old, our 6-year-old, like, their hearts are so pure.
Yeah.
And just like what's right and what's wrong just is so clearly defined for them. There's a lot less gray area. Like, do we have a sin nature? Absolutely. It's still selfish. Sure. Yes.
I want the big piece.
Yes, right. Always want that, right? They still have a tendency to lie about things when they're gonna get in trouble.
Absolutely.
Definitely, But like, it's still so clear to them what's right and what's wrong. And I think like that's what you see was this 7-year-old leads. He's just kind of like, this isn't right. This is God's temple. Why is it not repaired? Right? And then he says something and time goes by and it still doesn't get repaired.
Yeah,
like,
nothing happens.
All right, you know what? Y'all can't figure this out on your own, so I'm gonna come up with my own plan here to get this repaired and pay these people, because y'all just keeping this stuff for yourself and y'all not actually doing what I asked you to do, right? Like, I don't know. I love that, and I can see. Thinking he's not 7 the whole time he rules. I think he's older, but just to see that childlike leadership, or just perspective, I can kind of imagine some of that just looking at even like our own kids in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I love how you said, like, he was like, okay, it's not getting done, so we have to do something different. And what I took note was, is like, at first he gave it to the priest so that they would do the repairs, right? And so in verse 8 it says, so the priest agreed that they should not take no more money from the people, and that they should not repair the house. And in verse 11, now here we see who they have actually chosen to like repair the house, right? They would give the money that was weighed out into the hands of the workmen who had oversight of the house of the Lord, and they paid it out to the carpenters and the builders who worked on the house of the Lord, and to the masons, the stone cutters, and all those people. So it's kind of like you have the wrong people doing the wrong, the job, right? Like, I think it's really important to even know, like, even in your church, or you said, like, the heart is good, the vision is good on what he wanted to do and what needed to get done. Joash had that like initial, like, we need to repair this temple for the Lord, but like the mechanism of like the strategy of like who should do it and how should we go about this was like the wrong strategy at first, right? Like, okay, first of all, it's not the priest, because they're not about it, they're not getting nothing done. Like, why? It's because they're the wrong people for the job. And so even just like having the right people, and like I said, this is what the unity piece again. See, he was right on point with the unity prayer. Like yesterday, when you say you wanted unity in the body of the church, is because you can't just have one set of people, one type of gifting, doing everything.
Yeah,
and it's not their calling. And so here it's like, I need you, I need you, I need you. I need all of us to come together as a collective to get things done. And I feel like this is what I see here.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, it does get done. And he kind of does that. There's, still some areas that like some things belong to the Lord as far as some basins and stuff. But like, that gets done. And then there's a quick story about how Joash essentially bribes King Hazael to keep him from destroying Jerusalem, right? And And then, unfortunately, Joash was assassinated, man.
Yeah.
He was to die, and his servants kind of conspire against him. And so, back to your point, man, there's no way to be trusted here. So, anything else in chapter 12 before we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, I think the one thing that made me sad though is like after all of this though, it didn't seem like he like sought the Lord to like go against, this enemy. Like he tried to bribe and took this, money, and we see this over and over. The kings continue this over and over. They just take from the Lord's storehouses and give it as a bribe or payment and tribute to another nation instead of calling upon the Lord. And so I wonder if that is part of the fault.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, it doesn't really get much better. It's probably only, most of these kings that we're seeing are not going to be good, and even the ones that are kind of good are just kind of good. So, we might as well kind of get used to it at this point, because that's kind of the story this week, and we'll see kind of what God does about it by the end of this week. But that does bring us to the end of today's conversation here in chapter 12, and we'll pick up tomorrow in chapter 13. But appreciate you guys joining us. Hopefully, again, this is helpful to go along with your reading as you read along with us. But yeah, we'll see you tomorrow starting in chapter 13. Till then, take care.
Thank you for joining us for the VIBEZ Daily Podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or download our favorite, the VIBEZ Church app. Visit vibes.church/devoted for additional episodes, notes, details, and the latest merch. Join us next time as we continue our journey through the Bible. Take good care.